Hey everyone, it is Friday, August 14th, 2020, and this week on MECCA Moments, we're talking about um, organizing and organizing your space and organizing your life. Let's bring on our guests today. Dr. Ebanks, can you introduce our guests?
Yes, of course. I would like to welcome Andrea Hancock. She is has a business that she started in 2010 called Dexterous Organizing. She's an active member of the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals. In her team, she works to help clients with hands-on assistance with strategy and implementation and organizing and coaching. She is born and raised in Washington, D.C. She graduated with a degree in accounting from the University of Maryland at College Park. While professional organizing deals with the stuff, Andrea is a graduate of the foundation courses of coach approaching for organizers and uses organizing coaching as a tool to partner with her clients to dig a little deeper to clarify values and what matters most in order to have a more balanced lifestyle. So I'd like to welcome Andrea Hancock.
Thank you. Good to be here.
We're so glad to have you. I was like, what's she talking about? It's muted. I can hear myself. We're so glad to have you, and such a great topic today because organization. A lot of people have, not a lot of people, but many people have challenges with keeping their life organized, and the impact of living in a chaotic space can not only impact, what you see, but also how you feel. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you got started in this process, and how have you helped people change how they feel about themselves and their spaces?
Well, how we begin the organizing process. A lot of times people just have to recognize the need, usually to pick up the phone and give us a call. It takes some guts and some clarity, some honesty. And so we begin with a discovery call to see if we're a good fit for them. Trying to clarify, just let them speak about what they are looking to accomplish. Because really and truly, the definition of organized is to find what you need when you need it. Doesn't necessarily have to be a Pinterest end, Instagram looking end. But basic organization is finding what you need when you need it. So just really clarifying with the client what they are looking to achieve. Hopefully that we'll be able to achieve that with them.
Andrew, you've been doing it for a while. You started, we talked about a little bit off camera. Can you tell us what your profession was before you started your organizing business?
Yeah, I went to school for accounting, and I ended up going into that field. I worked for a nonprofit for about 7 years. And I always I give a caveat. I was the accountant who initially hated math. And I loved accounting. And the reason why is because accounting is organizing numbers. It's taking a lot of data, and it has a flow. It has a balance. And then you're presenting reports and you're presenting the information back in a way that makes sense, so that people can make decisions based on that data. So that was what I actually liked about accounting, was that, there was math involved, but a lot of the programs did that behind the scenes, and you didn't have to understand what you were looking at. But I love the emotional piece about
it. And so you moved from that space, and you've been doing this for 10 years now. What did you expect? What did you expect when you first made that move? And 10 years later, what do you feel now?
Well, I found out about the profession on television. Like, make most life decisions, right? See it on TV first, and you're like, I want to do that. There was a show called Clean House, with Lucy Nash, with her flower in her hair. Mayhem, foolishness.
Right.
So they would sort through and they would sell the items at a yard sale, and then the interior designer would come in and make the space beautiful, and a professional organizer would organize the things. And the initial organizer on the show her name was Linda Coopersmith. And when I heard I was a professional organizer, I was very curious. So when I searched it on the internet, I found at the time I found NAPO, the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals. And I joined, and pretty much the rest is history. I think throughout the years, especially in the beginning, everyone thinks organizing is about pretty bins and labels. But I found out pretty quickly that it's usually organizing is not about the stuff, it's about the people.
And, you know, the MECCA Group, and we're all about people. And so let's just talk about that. Does a professional organizer make a person get rid of stuff?
It's a common misconception. And I think that's one of the hurdles why people either get pushback from family members when they want to hire someone, especially if they live in the household, or if they just like, they're just going to make me get rid of something and I don't want to. And that's actually not true. There's a process to organizing. And of course, if the space is overwhelmed with things and you want to reach your goal, then you may have to get rid of some things, but we're not like, you gotta get rid of it. I mean, granted, I say professional organizers are like personal trainers. You might get the hard hitting ones, and then you might get the ones that are more yoga instructors. And I kind of think that's not how my personality is when it comes to that. And that's one of the reasons why I did coaching, because I want the onus to be on the client. I don't want them to, my organizer made me get rid of it. I want them to own it. So just kind of understand, what their end goals are. Then, I also hear some background noise. Then we can, figure out what it is their end goals are. But there's one instance where, people get tired of making decisions. And they usually will look at a box and they'll just cycle through and they'll say, I don't think I need anything in this box. And I'll push them because I'm like, have you found X yet? Have you found Y for what you're really looking for? And there's been, especially when it comes to paper, maybe 5 years of old mail. Then that you might find a savings bond or a certificate that you were looking for that you thought you had lost. So I kind of, do push people not to get rid of it, but to find the things that they really need so they can be organized, which again is the definition, is to find what you really need.
We talked a little bit earlier, and I said I would probably want you to come to my apartment and throw everything away, and I'm fine with starting over. And so it's good. Most people don't want that to happen. How do you choose with the partnership that you have with your clients? How do you pick what stays and what goes?
Again, it's based on what they want to use the room for, what they are looking to achieve. So a lot of times, especially if say a room that's very cluttered and they're not utilizing it often, the very first piece of the organizational process is to define the space. What are you going to be doing in this space? How do you want to feel in this space? Is it going to be multi-function? Is it going to be an office and a guest room? Or are you going to exercise in here or not? And when you make that definition of first, then as you're going through things, you can go through the flow chart of, does this item fit in the vision that you've created for this room? Does it fit in the office? Does it fit in a guest room? So it helps you to make better decisions about what goes and what's going.
So I'm going to jump in here, Brandon, real quick.
Okay.
So regarding being a parent, and now with having to work remotely as well as homeschool, what do you see a lot of parents approaching you now or asking questions in terms of how to make their either apartment or home, kind of fit everything, because now the same bedroom is now their classroom, and also their perhaps exercise room, and for PE classes as well as their art room. How can you help parents out with that?
Absolutely. So again, it's going back to defining the definition and how does that child work? Do they work better if everything's put away? And if that's the case, we may define spaces in such a way that things are divided. If it's multiple children and, they may get distracted. You're touching me. You may divide the room with a cube system or a bookshelf so that visually they may not see each other, and it may calm them down a little bit more to focus on the screen. They're learning remotely. So, it's always about the person and, finding out how they think. And then that can give the roadmap to where things go and things are.
Okay. And going back to what to get rid of, I always hear, if you haven't worn it in a year, then get rid of it. I'm not one to do that because I find myself, I never wore this, and it comes in handy. So how do you help people decide, like, really, I know you said in terms of, how are you going to use it, but, in terms of, wait a minute, I did spend, good a chunk of money on this, or, I really have emotional ties to that, so how do you help individuals with that?
Sometimes it comes down to prioritizing. So if you have ample space, then you can then make make more freer decisions about what goes and what stays. But if you say live in a studio apartment, you may not have that same luxury of deciding about what goes or what stays. You have to be a little bit more circumspect about that. Unless, and I don't necessarily advise this, especially with clothes, you have some type of offsite storage. But whatever is in your space, so based on the size, if you're limited in space, you have to be a little harder on yourself. Just like think about physical. Like I'm short. I'm 5 feet. 5 pounds shows up different on me than it would on my husband, who's 6'2". So it's just the nature of physics. So it's about prioritizing. Are you using it often? Maybe splitting seasons, storing some things that you're not wearing often in a different place, or what are you wearing if it's a formal outfit, but you do plan on wearing it again? Maybe that goes in a less accessible area in the closet, way in the back. So it's just about prioritizing and then thinking about how accessible things can be. We can make things least accessible when you're using them often, and more accessible when you're using them more often.
Thank you.
So when we're talking about the whole person, do you have clients who are suffering or have mental health challenges when you're doing an organization?
Absolutely. So a lot of our clients either struggle with organization because either they lack the time, they lack the ability, or they lack the skill, or it could be a combination of the three. And a lot of times the ability to either organize or keep up with the system of organization comes from mental health issues, anxiety, depression, or maybe they may be grieving, whatever the case may be, has stunted them in life. And a lot of times people feel overwhelmed and they feel like they should be on top of everything, but then they start listing things that have happened in their life My mom died of cancer. I was in the car accident. The cat died. You're just like, wait a minute. You just prioritize your life and you took care of the more important things. Whether your, file cabinet is color coded, it doesn't really matter right now. You have to, sometimes you have to put your life in pause, or there's some other type of position, especially with mental health. There's ups and downs in mental health where, seasonal things happen. Maybe they are more active in the summer and less active in the winter. I'm just preparing for that. I had one client in particular, she would buy in bulk nutritional drinks because when she went into a depression, she didn't even want to fix herself something to eat. So she was preparing herself for those times that she would at least be getting some nutrition. So we had to find places for those drinks. Because that was a part of her life and dealing with her mental illness.
And do you work with mental health providers? Because, I'm an avid HGTV and, watcher as well. And you do hear those stories where they lost a loved one or they had some sort of trauma that has impeded their ability to get rid of things. And they've invited more, items into their homes that they have the space for. You watch a show like Hoarders, where there are organizers working alongside, psychologists. Does your service also work hand in hand with some professionals or, advise clients to perhaps seek mental health assistance?
Yes. So we don't work much with hoarders because hoarding is it can be a place where it's continuous, and we do more kind of A to B momentum with our clients. But when we don't shy away from a very cluttered space. And so because there may be a lot of clutter and on top of the mental health issues, I also, and in my coaching training, I've also learned to find out what is your support system. Because if a person is alone in it, two things could happen. They could depend too much on their organizer for more than just the organizing piece. And the other thing that could happen is they just give out because they're not getting that mental health support. So love working with therapists, business coaches, life coaches. Those are the types of individuals who are right in the center of their clients' lives and realizing the importance of organization in their clients' lives, that it does support their goals, it does support their mental health. And it's not just, a nice thing to do. It's invaluable.
When you walk into someone's space, what is one of their biggest fears when working with you as an organizer? I can't that word. Like, I can't say it for some reason today. Organizer. That's probably because my room is a mess. What I'm saying is, when someone hires you, what is their biggest fear that you've seen?
They're usually scared of judgment. They've gotten it so much from family, from friends, from themselves. And they're thinking, and they think, someone being a professional organizer, it's like that our lives are perfect 100% of the time. And they're going to see this face, or even they've known someone who was very organized. And sometimes they could be like, why are you doing? Why are you keeping, And so I think that when they find out that we are not judgmental, that we're looking for solutions when we're looking around, we're not looking at the clutter. Yeah. So they sense that. They get it. I had a woman who called me who did speak with another professional organizer, and wording is very, very important. that person has said a word or phrase that made her feel that because of her illness and her condition that she was to blame for the situation that she was in. And I don't necessarily know what that person said, but they're at a heightened sense of sensitivity when it comes to feeling like there's judgment. I think that is usually an impediment, or maybe the first thing that comes to their mind. But it's been times where, it's like how you go to the doctor and you have a pain and your doctor says, "Oh, we see this all the time."
Yeah.
And you're like so relieved. You're like, "Oh, I thought I was dying." So sometimes I go into a space and I talk with the client and I just say, "Oh yeah, we can do this, this, or that." And it, pre-COVID, they would like hug me at the end of a session because not even we hadn't even started anything. I hadn't touched anything, but they just saw the light at the end of the tunnel. They knew that some capable person who wasn't going to bring judgment to their space, that this was going to happen. They were going to get the organization and the interior space that they wanted. And it just brought them so much relief just from the consultation.
And it's an important point that you made. You said pre-COVID. So now, in the midst of COVID, in the midst of the pandemic, how are you providing services and what recommendations? Do you do anything differently in terms of providing recommendations to your clients?
Yeah, so we do consultations virtually. They're not as ideal because, the client's usually holding their phone or their laptop, and I can only see what they show me.
Which is probably only the good stuff, right?
Well, their perspective and my perspective is different. I want to see vertical space. I want to see, are we organizing paper? Are we organizing clothes? Are we organizing toys? Because all of that makes a difference in the time in the process. So virtual is not ideal, but we do it. And I've even before the pandemic did virtual consultations based on maybe the time frame of things we need to get done, or how maybe the distance of the client. But now we offer that. But I do in-person consultations, masked up. Everyone be masked up. And same with when we actually do the work. And we get more jobs now because we have a team. And so we can do large jobs in a day or a few hours. Okay. And sometimes the client will not even be there. We may get all the preliminary information we need. If there's questions, we can maybe communicate with them via text or video chat or something. If it's, impeding us from continuing. And the team can just be there while the client is away. We just did that this weekend when the client was out of town, which I think is wonderful. Like, you come to vacation and everything has a home and it's labeled. They were ecstatic. So I love doing it, actually.
What are the most common things that you see when you're in people's homes? What are some of the common things that you see as a problem or maybe a challenge for people to maintain organization?
Paper and mail are probably one of the top things. For parents, toys, and where the children will play versus where they do their homework versus where they sleep and dress. Home offices, again, it goes back to paper, but also having a dedicated space for that even before the whole working from home thing. A lot of people are a lot of our clients are what I call busy professionals. So they work from home part-time anyway, or they own their own business and they work from home. So having that dedicated space. And then probably after that, I would say kitchen.
So for multi-generational homes, or for if you have a parent who they're getting older, elderly, and they may not be able to really care for their things as much. How do you work with or an older person to want to get do away or put away some of their items in terms of safety and due to cleanliness and being able to upkeep, have you had that experience also in working with, perhaps an older generation that are more attached to their personal items?
Yes, I've had a client for years. She's probably the only person I still go back to on a regular basis. I even tell people now, I don't see recurring clients anymore, but I go back to this person, and she's older, and I don't come with an agenda. I usually go to her once a month.
Okay.
And she can be very attached to certain things. She has a huge affinity for greeting cards. She could probably open up a greeting card store with the amount of cards she has, but every holiday, every birthday, every whatever, she needs to also go out and get more. So I'm constantly organizing her cards. So when I go, okay, what are you working on today? And I say, I don't know, what are you going to work on today? And we will just do pockets here, we'll do pockets there. And it, she could have a plethora of things on her kitchen counter. This one particular time I come, this one drawer is bothering her. And I'll organize the drawer, and then she's just so happy. So it's about the person bothering her at that point. And I don't push her, because I've learned when I push a little harder for her, it's kind of like a Chinese trap. It's just like the more I pull, the more she like down on it. So I just kind of go with the flow, and then I make suggestions, and I can tell that she has some anxiety around throwing things away. So she'll be sometimes with me, and then sometimes when it's like maybe she's a big catalog shopper and she can have tons and tons and tons of catalogs. So I'll start going from the bottom and throwing away, winter 2019, and she'll walk away because she knows it needs to be done. And I've built up such a rapport with her that she knows that I'm also looking for important things. I'm just not doing it, indiscriminately.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and that may be where you have to meet a person. Like, you can't force a person to change.
And I think that goes back to not placing that judgment, because that, I'm sure, in your reaction, your facial expressions, the language that you use, oh, that's not important, or that you have that it is important to them, and validating and putting value to that item and saying, oh, this is beautiful, I see why you would want to keep it, and let's put it to the side and see what we could do with it, rather than just saying, oh, that's not important, that so it really, I think that judgment doesn't just come from what is being said, but the feeling that they're getting from the organizer. So it seems like you really build a intimate relationship with that individual because they have such an intimate relationship with their items.
Yes.
Especially if they have mental health issues as well.
Mm-hmm. And what I've learned, and I train my team a lot on it, because a lot of them came because they love organizing, they love keeping their space organized, and they might see a crumpled up piece of paper, and for all intents and purposes, it could be trash. But if you open it up, it may be a love letter, or it could have a little heart on it or something. And you never know what that meant to that person. It may have been the first love note that their significant other gave them. So you can't make calls. You have to, and when when you take that crumpled up piece of paper and they're like, no, that was a gum wrapper from yesterday. Just throw it in the trash. But if you continue to ask, is this trash? Or they get the feeling and know that you're not just throwing their stuff away. And we've had instances where, you do have to sometimes make executive decisions. And I threw away an empty box of crackers. And this one we were doing an unpack. And the lady came and she was like, that was my grandfather's company. And I didn't know. We were actually unpacking a kitchen. So I didn't know that, that was a sentimental item. But she had other, I said, well, and it called me saying, that there was another 4 box in the kitchen. And I'm thinking to myself, I wouldn't necessarily keep memorabilia of that item in the kitchen. But you never know. So you have to just really be circumspect with what you throw away.
It sounds like they're important. You put a huge importance on developing a relationship with the client and understanding who they are and finding out what their personality is and how that impacts how they move throughout their space. I think that's important and nice to know, because that's not what I think about when I think about an organizer. I just think, like I said earlier, I just want you to come in and throw away stuff, and more than just that.
Absolutely. Now, granted, because there is no barrier to the industry, like I know Dr. Ebanks went to school, she has certification, you have a title, and you can get a title as an organizer. I could be a certified professional organizer specializing in chronic disorganization. Be a organizer coach, COC. There are designations, but the public, for the most part, doesn't understand that. That's something in the industry, like, oh, well, this person is, whatever. But when it comes to the industry and someone just saying, oh, I'm a professional organizer, you can certainly find someone on that. And not saying that a task organizer doesn't get it. I'm just saying that there are various calibers of people who feel professional organizers, and some understand the human side of it, and some don't. So that is something I think when you're vetting a company to, have see how professional they are. Is it just somebody who says, "Oh, I'm really great at organizing, and I'm just going to come in for everything"? You can certainly find that.
It's definitely a holistic approach, and I think Dr. Ebanks, we do this MECCA Moments, and we're always talking about the person. And so any organization that focuses in on the person as well as what they do, I think that's a clear advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I have clients that always say, "Well, what do you think I should do with this?" And I say, "Look, when I leave, you're gonna have to find it, not me. So let's talk about what do you think you should do with it." So, again, some people need permission, and I'm not a psychologist. I don't know the implications of that, but a lot of times people hire you to say, "This is my child's artwork. Is it okay if I throw it away?" And I ask those questions so many times. And I'm like, and sometimes I'll say, "Sure, it is okay." And then they just need that validation and permission to do what they wanted to do anyway. But there are these other voices like, "You can't throw away your child's artwork. That's blasphemy." But yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like with counseling, as you said, it is where sometimes people just need guidance. They need someone to talk to. They need someone to go over it with them. A lot of times the answer is within themselves, but they just really want to talk it out to make sure, with, even seeking therapy, I say that at the end of the day, the client walks out the door and they have to live with their decision. They have to live with the consequences of their decision, but while they're in the space, we look at their choices and we look at the consequences. of any particular choice that they have, and then help them to make the decision for themselves. Going to counseling is not about telling you what to do, it's helping you figure out what you should do. And it sounds like the same thing with organizing. And that's why I think I wanted to do this segment. Even myself, as I said, I'm an avid HGTV watcher, been going to sleep, used to watch Clean House and go to sleep to it every night now. And I, like organizing other people's homes, their closets and things like that. But sometimes within myself, I'm like, oh my God, I have a lot of mail right here. And it's like that thing that you want to avoid because it's like, it's a bill, or there's circulars. Is there a check in there somehow? But you can do other people's, but not necessarily always, your own. So as I said, I really wanted to do this segment because I think this is a conversation to be had, because you have so many people at home now really trying to figure out, what should I do with my space? A lot of people took on some home projects. They're probably still not finished, right now. Or again, preparing for the academic year that will now be at home and really helping their children at, any level, whether they're elementary, middle school, or high school, or even college. Some students are in college at home, figure out their space. So how do you get children involved in this process?
So, of course, it's usually the parent that's hiring, especially, if they're not adults. And so I usually ask the parent, do you want them involved, or do you want to make the decisions? And it's about a 50-50 split.
Okay.
And it also depends on the age of the child. And so sometimes we're working side by side with the child. We have a client where I did a consultation with last week. Her daughter has ADHD. She has 3 daughters, and she wants someone to work with her daughter who has ADHD one-on-one. I wish I could coach the mom, because the mom sometimes says some very disparaging things. Like, this is my disorganized daughter. And I'm like, this label. But there's so yeah, we can work one-on-one with the child. And I've had another thought about that, and I just floated out of my head. But maybe it'll come back.
Okay. Oh, so that's also very good that you stated in terms of working with the children who also may be experiencing some social emotional, disorders or concerns, and helping them, because again, the pattern that they learn and follow now can get them through the lifetime, and if they're living in disorganization and permitted to do that, that's how they're going to continue to, live their life.
Exactly. And it brought back what I was thinking. Okay. A lot of times parents hire me to work with them first, because they feel like I can't tell my children to be more organized, and I'm not setting the example. But again, they don't have the skill or the time or the ability. So they hire us, they work on themselves first. And you have others who, moms are typically putting their children first. They're like, work with my children and then come work with me. Mm-hmm. But they do recognize I have a lot of parents say, I want to change because I see my daughter doing X, and I can't correct this pattern because I'm doing this as well. So that is usually, it's like they pattern. I find that with adults and children, a lot of times the result, it could be the direct result of how they were raised. And you would think sometimes if a person was raised in a very organized household, that they might turn out very organized. But a lot of times that's the opposite effect, because depending on how judgmental or how, lack of a better word, kind of anal that parent that was organized was, they would fail and say, I don't want to, everything has to be in space. No, I'm just going to do whatever. And then they just kind of grow up rebelling, and then they realize that, okay, hey, I do need some level of organization, but now at this point, I don't know how to get there. That parent was very organized and they did everything for their child. So they never got the skill set to be organized, because when they came home, everything was done. They just threw their things down and whoop, it was put away. Or because, you have that parent who says, it's not going to get done right, I'm just doing it myself. Not teaching the child the skill set. So they grow up then calling me because they don't know how to organize. So, and then the opposite, there are people who are very organized because they grew up in a hoarding situation, or with parents who were not organized at all. So it's very interesting, the dynamic.
So the parent's parenting style can certainly affect the organizational skills that the child will possess.
Absolutely.
I'm starting to think about what was my mom's parenting style in terms of that. I think it was probably more for me rebelling, because I'm like, I'm not cleaning up. What do you think is the biggest tool that your clients can have when tackling decluttering? What's the biggest tool that you recommend?
It's probably not something very tangible. I would say the biggest tool a person needs in decluttering is forgiveness, and particularly for themselves. And the reason why I say that is when they're going through their items and deciding what goes and what stays, a lot of times they are coming upon missed opportunities, things they shoulda, coulda, woulda, and that brings sadness, it brings guilt. But I think if I see that happening, I want them to be a little bit preemptive and say, if you find that again, just take a moment. You might want to just forgive yourself and say, okay, maybe it's a statement, maybe it's you take a moment, you have a small teeny pity party, but you move on. Because if you continue, every time you come across those things, you get low and low and low and low. And then when it's time to tackle another decluttering project, you're just like, absolutely, I don't want to do this. Or you find yourself avoiding it. Like, I have other things to do. I have to clip my toenails. I don't have time. So forgiveness is key. I mean, there's times where, gifts that were purchased for someone who may have been deceased, that I didn't give that to them. This opportunity. It could be a uncashed check, or slew in some cases. I've seen slew of uncashed checks that have been expired, and you may not be able to recoup that money, or it may take now another thing on your to-do list to make these phone calls to see if you can get the cut. So, you're going to find those things, but if you practice that self-forgiveness, you can move on. It's a missed opportunity. It's not crying over spilled milk, but what can we do to move forward and make the space and keep that from happening again? So what system are you going to put in place to keep this from happening again? And what did you learn from this experience?
So with that, I guess my follow-up question is, what are some tips that you could give our viewers regarding how to prevent that? Like, what are some organizational tips that you could, suggest on how to start this process?
So the illustration I give for this is, if you walk into the kitchen and you see that the sink is overflowing and the water's on, what is the first thing you do? Is it to get the mop? Is it to unclog the sink? Nope. The first thing you do is turn the water off. So you have to recognize what is flowing in that is creating this backlog, and then create systems for that. Either it's cutting the water, like cutting off this, there's ways with mail. You can put yourself on a, do not mail list, for unnecessary catalogs. You can maybe if your mailbox is big enough, you can I'll just check my mail every other day versus every day. Mm-hmm. But figuring out whatever that system is, and then implementing that on the incoming items. And then there's the backlog. You can work on that in increments. And then, but the main thing is that you are addressing what's going in. And because it's way easier to deal with stuff, either while you're like a person who may overshop in the store, you're like, oh, I really like that. But the next question should be, where is it going to go? Because if you don't have room for it, what value is it? Are you going to use it? What value is it bringing into your space? Because otherwise, it can just be a headache later for you to have to go through it again. Or you get it home and you're like, I got to return this now. I didn't like it. I have to anymore. So turn the water off. Where, maybe you walk away from that item, and that's one less thing you have to do later.
Okay, thank you for that.
I'm ready.
What are you going to tackle first, Brandon?
What did you say?
I said, what are you going to tackle first, Brandon?
Everything. So, wait, I got to start small.
Yes.
The flow from coming in, right? So I got to cut that off.
Even thinking about like when people, like we work with a lot of busy professionals, and when conferences and things were going on, people will bring all this stuff, be cognizant. Like if there's a lot of business cards, be like, you know what? Let me take a picture of that. Business card. And just when you start to see where things flow in, you it's like you're a machine. You're like, pew, pew, pew. This isn't coming in here.
I like that. I actually think that's very good. A very good tip to imagine where that you will place that in your space before you take it in. And you'll, just thinking like that, I'm already thinking, no, that can't go there. I can't put that. That's going to cause clutter. I'm sorry. I've done that at conferences. I'm like, no, thank you. I don't need another notebook because already I have no space for that. So I like that. I'm going to remember that now. Before you bring it in, imagine where it's going to go. When your customers are done with you, your clients are done with you, what do they say?
Oh man. Wow. I didn't think we could do, it's so much gratitude because in reference to David Allen's book, Getting Things Done, his goal is to get people's mind like water. And the reason you just kind of flow. And the reason why we are so much to do, because there's so much floating around our brains. We got to take the car to the mechanics. The kids need braces. I got to, all these little things to do. And so when a space is organized, there's usually tons of unknowns in that space. And also tons of things that people recognize is going to lead to this and this and this and this to do. But once the room is organized, either the to-do list is corralled in one little space and you kind of can see what you're dealing with as far as what needs to be done next, or they're eliminated. So that, sense of accomplishment is just enormous. And the fact that a lot of times we get it done in one day is even, it's a lot of times we can minimally need the client in the space. They just need to breathe the brain. Like we'll sort everything together. And then they see they have 15 umbrellas. And they're like, decision that maybe I only need 5. I'll put 2 in the car. I'll put 2 here and I'll keep 1 in my bag. Great. Versus every time they come across, it's like matchbox, cord, umbrella, and making decisions on each and every single thing. So, we can come in, sort, they make the decision, they leave out, they come back, it's organized. They love it.
I love it. I love it. Dr. Ebanks?
I have so many more questions. So what do you suggest in terms of giving or with the items? What do they do with it? So, how to decide to donate. Do you wait to the annual yard sale? Now there's so many, there's Let Go, there's OfferUp, there's Facebook Marketplace, then you have to interact with, people to negotiate or sell. What do you suggest to the clients?
So it's interesting you mentioned that, because a lot of times that's also an impediment to getting organized. It's like, I want to get rid of something, but I don't know where or how or who can it benefit. Because a lot of clients just don't want to just indiscriminately like put it in a Planet A box and walk away. They really want to feel like their donations are going to a good cause. Mm-hmm. So professional organizers tend to have a plethora of resources in that vein. And it's been times, and on the other side of it, some clients are like, I don't care. And I'm just like, no, that is not going to trash. We can donate that, because I'm like trying to get out of landfills as much as possible. So we have resources that can come pick up that day or the next day. We have haulers who do everything. They'll take donation, they'll take recycle, and they'll take trash, and everything's gone.
Oh, okay.
So, how many times have a person tried to get it together and they bag everything and then they put it in their trunk and or they put it by the door and it stays there and it stays there and it stays there. And that's again, mine is not like water. I gotta take that take. And even now it's harder, because at least certain donation centers are completely closed, or they're super picky about what they're taking. They're not taking furniture, like Goodwill in our area isn't taking furniture, and they're only open from 10 to 1 every day. That's it. And the lines are astronomical. But we have other little tricks up our sleeve that help.
I know for myself, I schedule the pickup of the donations, because and then I have a due date. Like, I need to go through a certain amount of stuff so that, because I know the donation truck is coming. And one that I will, I guess free advertisement would be for Go Green Drop. Due to the Red Cross, you could pick 3 different centers that they donate to. And I, schedule them quite often, like maybe once a quarter, to pick up, items.
That is a good system. So you have a system for the incoming things. And a lot of people don't realize, what is the amount of time things you're going how often are you going shopping and bringing things in? How often you go to Target for toothpaste and you come back with 5 bags?
Yes, I was at Target yesterday.
To the best of us. But the point is, like, are you balancing that what you're bringing in to what's going out? And I really love the fact that you schedule these pickups, because now it holds you accountable, and you're actually have to force yourself to go through and declutter. So you are kind of offsetting the things that do.
I like that, Dr. Ebanks.
Thank you. I watch HGTV.
Oh, okay. It's sort of like that, kind of like introduce one, reduce one. You bring in, you have to take something out, like when you're shopping. Some people just never take stuff out.
Yeah, I force myself when it comes to clothes to do that.
Yeah, I can't. I honestly can't with that. But, with my children, because they grow out of clothes so quickly, and it's like, wait a minute, your drawer is full. I can't, And then again, do I want to go try to, sell it to make a few bucks on it? It depends. Some things I do. But and then other things, it's like, you know what? Someone needs this coat more. And I'd rather donate that than necessarily try to make because a lot of the places that you can sell the stuff, consignment stores or whatever, are you really going to get that much out of it? And then I think about, how much did I pay for it? you know, so it has to be a balance because it'll come back to you when you donate it, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And the effort it takes to sell something is like, are you going to recoup that? You think about like, even with, they make it easy, like ThreadUp and those, they give you the pouches and you just fill it in and, you know, that's low effort. But from some of these apps, you know, how many times have I gotten stood up? Oh, meet me at this parking lot. And you said, you know what I mean? It's like the time that I wasted to get $20. You know, is it worth just donating it?
I've been trying to get rid of a table for like 2 months. And so definitely.
I think you got to find what fits you and find your system. And that may take some trial and error, as you said. You know, how many times do you want to get stood up before you say, let me try a different app, or let me try a different system, or you know what, I don't want to. I'm only getting $20 off of it. You know, my time is more valuable. So I think it is trial and effort. But the good thing is that, and I would love for you to share some of your resources if you can, that there's options. And I think when people don't feel like they have options, that's when the pile will continue to load up in the corner, or they continue to keep the bag in their trunk, and it then now has space in their trunk rather than in their house. But and then when they need to go to Target, it's full. You know, so I think that, you know, the options are important. I think, you know, that people need to know that they do have options.
So I'm gonna get some of the secret sauce today, but that's fine. These are platforms for everybody. But now that we live in a on-demand world, there are on-demand services. Now you will pay for them, and that varies. But to find a junk hauler, we use or any other, you know, like sometimes we realize, okay, we need to use this vertical space and we need to build some shelves or install some shelves or install something. And I may not have a handyman on that, you know, we didn't know about this before, but it needs to happen. We'll go on Thumbtack. We'll go on, well, it was Tackle is actually TAKL. I think it's TALK. Tack. They, you know how they try to make the word interesting, but they were on-demand service for handymen, for delivery. So we would, hey, take this. We'd find the closest donation center to the client's home, and we'd have them pick it up and take it. But now we use a service, and I just used it Sunday because it was a 911 emergency for this. It was a moving situation, so it was. It was a 911 emergency for getting some donation out. And it's an app called Bungie, BNG. Basically, the premise of this, it started off kind of like Uber for when you need a person in a truck. So say you're at Home Goods and you see this fantastic mirror, but it's not. You can say, I need a bungee, and they will come with a person with a truck, and then you have the option to slide it over, and you said, no, I got 2 mirrors. You have 2 drivers and two trucks, and pickup trucks. And so I use that service for like immediate donation needs. And yeah.
And with this being August is Small Black Business Month, you know, I think it's very important to let, you know, our viewers of resources like yourself with your business, and, you know, the MECCA Group is a small business as well, about those individuals that are in service related or professional services, as well as, you know, retail and restaurants, because I think a lot of time there's a lot of patronizing restaurants and retail stores. However, you know, that attention to professional organizers or, you know, professional services and service related businesses by Black entrepreneurs is very important to acknowledge and to support, because we also need, Black customers and, Black and brown customers to support, our endeavors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been important to have that conversation, and I've felt honored when I always ask clients, how did they find me, or why did they choose us? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people will say, because you look like me. and and this industry isn't necessarily there's a smattering of Black and brown professional organizers, but where I'm finding is we're just scattered. Mm-hmm. we're starting to find each other and have conversations, because it is, and our business is in Alexandria, Virginia, Northern Virginia, and there's that question of am I being hired or not being hired, because once they found out who what I look like, did that matter? Mm-hmm. When I first started in my business, I struggled with whether or not to put my picture up. Mm-hmm. And then I decided, no, if they have an issue, I certainly don't want to be in your house. Mm-hmm. So, and I've come across certain things that were of racist nature, and they had no problem with those things. They didn't know they were racist, I assume. They differently, but it's very interesting. So it's good. And I said all that to say that I can't necessarily talk about that to my colleagues who aren't of color. They wouldn't necessarily understand. So it is good to know other organizers in the industry and be able to have those conversations openly.
Mm-hmm. And I know I also found out about the National Association of Black Professional Organizers, as well as another organization that you shared with me, and I can't remember off the top of my head, like an Instagram, group that, and if you could please share that that name with us as well.
Yes. So another organizer in this area, Dallas McCon, she created an Instagram page, Black Girls Who Organize. And she started just kind of featuring organizers of color. And when she first started it last year, she was like, I'm up till March, or I'm up till May or something. I'm like, really? Because when I go to my NAPO conference, it's not so diverse. So it was very surprising to see that. And, I think one of the things NAPO has always tried to be inclusive. And one of the reasons why I think they added productivity to their acronym is because productivity is usually more male driven. More men are involved, so they want to also open, because there's a lot. It's just a lot of. It's a very industry, and they want to open that up. And I my last conference I went to, actually last year in Texas, I saw more diversity. It was like,
it's making progress.
Oh, there's a guy. Oh, there's a Black woman. Yeah, so it's awesome.
It's wonderful.
So how can people get in touch with you when they want your services?
Well, our website, and that's Dexterous Organizing, DEXTEROUS organizing.com. We prefer to book a discovery call, and that gets a person on the path to the next steps. And we're also on Instagram at @the_Dexterous, and also the same handle for Twitter.
Nice. Well, Andrea, thank you so much for talking to us today about getting organized and productive, and in touch with ourselves, and encouraging us to create systems and be forgiving and non-judgmental. And I hope someone, can benefit from this. Dr. Ebanks, you have something?
Yes, definitely. I'd like to thank Andrea for participating in our segment today and giving us a wealth of information. Certainly walked away with some, tips in terms of prioritizing, finding purpose, finding that it's a process, doing it in little pockets, not pushing, yourself, and finding someone to help you through the process that, and not feeling judgmental or judged about it, and forgiving yourself. So I thank you, Andrea, again for participating today. Thank you, Brandon. And of course, as a Howard Bison, I would like to, and Brandon is as well, congratulate Senator Kamala Harris for her nomination as Vice President. And it's, again, kudos to all the Bisons, kudos to her and her team, and Joe Biden, and remember to vote in November.
Absolutely. Get our country organized.
Yes.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a blast. I can talk about organizing all day.
Well, we'll have you back.
And we'll talk.
It's definitely a need. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.